They said I stole from my own parents, but I was the one who kept their lights on. I still remember the way everyone looked at me that night, eyes full of doubt, lips tight with judgment. My mother wouldn't meet my gaze, my father's voice trembled with anger, and my sister, she just stood there, pretending to cry, while her lies tore me apart. It started with whispers, soft, poisonous words that spread faster than truth ever could. One by one, the people I loved began to believe that I was greedy, ungrateful, dishonest. And no matter how much I tried to explain, my words felt small compared to her tears.
She knew exactly what she was doing.
Every rumor, every half-smile, every fake apology, all of it was part of her perfect little plan to be the favorite. I kept silent then, but silence has a breaking point. And mine came the night I discovered what she'd done behind my back. To this day, I can still hear her voice, soft, sweet, and deadly, whispering my downfall.
People always said our family was the picture of perfection.
We had Sunday dinners together, laughed around the same table, and smiled for every family photo as if nothing could ever break us. But smiles can hide more than secrets, they can hide wounds too. My parents, Evelyn and Robert Carter, built their whole lives around reputation. People should admire the Carters, my father used to say, as if admiration was the same as love. My mother believed the same. She wanted everything polished, proper, and proud. And to the world, we were. Then there was Maya, my younger sister. Everyone called her the heart of the family. She had this effortless charm that made people melt. When she spoke, they listened. When she cried, they comforted her. I used to admire that, until I realized how invisible it made me. At every dinner, Maya would tell some story, about her new job, her new dress, her new friend, and my parents would beam with pride. I'd sit there, smiling, nodding, quietly pushing the mashed potatoes around my plate. Once, when I tried to share some news of my promotion at work, Mom interrupted. "That's nice, Lena, but did you hear? Maya just got invited to speak at her company's event." Everyone cheered for her. No one noticed that my voice had faded mid-sentence. I kept trying. I cooked, cleaned, helped plan family events, paid bills when they couldn't. But somehow, I was always the responsible one, not the loved one. I remember standing in the kitchen one night, helping Mom wash the dishes after a dinner party. She sighed happily and said, "Maya really makes this family proud." I just smiled, swallowed the ache in my throat, and whispered, "Yeah, she does." No one knew how many times I replayed those words in my head. When Noah, my fiancé, first met my family, he saw the difference instantly. "Your sister really loves the spotlight, who?" He laughed softly. I shrugged.
She was born for it.
I'm just the audience. Still, I believed love was shared, not compared. I told myself that parents loved their children equally, that maybe I just needed to try harder. But little things kept piling up. Maya's birthday parties were grand, mine were simple but heartfelt. When she was late, she was busy. When I was late, I was careless. And yet, despite it all, I loved her. I defended her when others called her spoiled. I trusted her with my secrets. She was my sister, my only sister. But lately, her smiles started feeling rehearsed. Her eyes lingered a little too long when Dad praised me. There was something calculating behind her laughter, something I didn't want to believe. Until one night, I overheard my parents whispering in the living room. Mom's voice trembled. "I just hope what Maya said about Lena isn't true." That was the first time I realized the war had already begun. I was just the last one to notice. The real storm began with something small, a rumor. Aunt Susan, my mother's older sister, loved gossip more than oxygen. One afternoon, she called my mother in a whisper loud enough for the whole house to hear. "Evelyn, I don't know if I should say this, but people are talking. They say Lena's been using the family's savings for herself." I was upstairs when I heard it. I froze mid-step, my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to run down, to shout the truth, but part of me hoped my mother would defend me. That she'd say, "Not my daughter, not Lena." But instead, I heard silence, then a sigh. "She's been under stress lately," Mom said softly. "Maybe she made a mistake."
A mistake. I felt my knees weaken.
By dinner that night, the air was different. My father's tone was clipped, his eyes cold. He didn't ask how my day went, didn't look at me the same. Maya sat quietly across from me, her expression unreadable, until I noticed the faintest smile tugging at her lips when Dad said, "We'll have to keep a closer eye on the accounts." That was her first move, subtle, perfect, and devastating. Over the next few days, I tried to ignore it, but whispers followed me everywhere. Aunt Susan accidentally mentioned it to a few relatives, and soon even family friends started treating me differently. My messages went unanswered. Invitations stopped coming. One night, I confronted Maya in our old shared room, the one that still smelled like our childhood. "Did you tell them I took the money?" I asked quietly. She looked up from her phone, her eyes wide with fake innocence. "What? Of course not, Lena. I only told Mom and Dad I was worried about you. You've been so distracted lately." Distracted? I laughed bitterly. "You mean working 2 jobs and paying Dad's hospital bills while you buy designer shoes?" Her tone softened, but her words sliced deep. "You always sound so defensive, Lena. Maybe that's why people don't trust you." For a second, I saw something cold flicker behind her gentle expression. A satisfaction she didn't bother hiding anymore. The next morning, my father called me into his study. His voice was calm but firm, too calm. "Your mother and I think you should let Maya handle the finances for a while. You've been careless lately." I wanted to scream, to show them every receipt, every sacrifice I'd made. But instead, I just nodded. "If that's what you think is best." Maya's voice echoed from behind me. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll make sure everything's taken care of." That was the moment I realized I had lost something much bigger than money. I had lost their trust. Days turned into weeks, and the house that once felt like home became a silent battlefield. Every glance, every word was loaded with suspicion. Even Noah began to question me. "Your sister said you've been hiding something. Is that true?" I stared at him, my heart breaking. "Do you believe her?" He hesitated, just for a second, but that second was enough. The truth was, I didn't know which hurt more, being accused of something I didn't do, or realizing that everyone I loved believed I could. That night, I stood outside Maya's door and heard her laughing on the phone. Her voice was light, victorious. "It worked, Mom. Dad finally trusts me more than her." My hands trembled as I pressed against the wall, fighting the urge to burst in. She didn't just lie, she replaced me. And in that moment, I knew, this wasn't jealousy. This was war. After the rumors, things didn't calm down. They worsened. The silence in our house turned sharp, like glass underfoot. Every word, every look, felt like it could cut me. Maya moved around as if she owned the place now. She spoke to our parents with the confidence of someone who had finally won. She was their pride. I was their burden. At first, I tried to act normal. I still helped Mom cook, still handled the bills no one else remembered to pay, still smiled during family dinners. But every small act of love I gave was met with suspicion, as if kindness from me was proof of guilt. One evening, during a family gathering, I experienced the humiliation I'll never forget. It was my father's birthday. I'd spent weeks planning a surprise, a memory book filled with photos and letters from everyone who loved him. I even included Maya's letter, which she had forgotten to write. I forged it to make sure the moment was perfect. When I handed it to Dad in front of everyone, he flipped through it, smiling, until Aunt Susan said casually, "Oh, Maya told me you didn't want Lena involved this year. Funny how she still took over." The smile vanished from his face. He closed the book and set it aside, without a word. Maya gasped in mock surprise. "Oh, I didn't say that, Aunt Susan. I just mentioned Lena likes to be in control of everything. I guess it came out wrong." Everyone laughed, softly, awkwardly, except me. I stood there, my cheeks burning, my throat tight. Mom sighed. "Lena, sweetheart, maybe next time let others handle it. You've done enough." "You've done enough." Those words sank like stones in my chest. That night, I cried in the bathroom, the water from the tap hiding my sobs. My reflection stared back, tired, humiliated, invisible. For years, I had kept peace, believing truth would speak for itself. But truth without a voice is just silence. A few days later, I overheard another conversation between Maya and Noah. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I just froze when I heard my name. "She's been hiding something, Noah," Maya whispered. "Don't tell her I said this, but I found some transactions in her account, big ones." Noah's voice was hesitant. Are you sure? Maya sighed dramatically. I love her, but she's been acting strange. I just don't want her to ruin your life too. I couldn't breathe. My fiancé, the man who promised to stand by me, was being turned against me one whisper at a time. Later that night, Noah confronted me. Is there something you're not telling me? He asked, eyes searching mine. I felt a lump in my throat. The only thing I'm hiding is how much this is killing me. He didn't answer. He just looked away. That's when my patience started to crack. The pain I'd swallowed for months began to harden into something else, quiet, simmering anger. I started watching Maya closely. The way she'd touch Dad's shoulder before speaking, how she'd lower her voice when lying, how she'd cry just long enough for sympathy. She was playing all of us, and no one even noticed. But I did. And I was done pretending not to. One evening, while cleaning her room, I found something that made my hands go cold, a voice memo on her phone labeled Lena's mistake. I didn't listen to it right away. My hands were shaking too much. But deep inside, I already knew. Whatever was on that recording wasn't just another lie, it was the beginning of my destruction. And soon, hers too. It happened on a night that was supposed to be one of the happiest of my life. My engagement dinner. The night both families were meant to celebrate my future with Noah. The house shimmered with fairy lights, soft music played in the background, and laughter floated through the air like everything was perfect. But underneath that glitter, I felt it, that familiar heaviness. The kind that comes before something terrible. Mom had been unusually distant all week. Dad barely spoke to me except to give instructions about the dinner. And Maya? She was radiant, smiling too much, hugging too long, whispering in corners. I tried to ignore it. I wanted peace, just for one night. When the guests arrived, the room buzzed with energy. I remember holding Noah's hand, smiling for the cameras, pretending everything was normal. I didn't notice Maya step onto the small stage until she tapped the glass with a spoon. Before we toast, she said sweetly, I have something important to share about my dear sister. The crowd turned toward her. I felt my stomach twist. She held up her phone and smiled. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think you all deserve the truth. My father frowned. Maya, what are you doing? Just being honest, Dad, she said softly, then press play. The audio filled the room. My own voice, or what sounded like mine, saying, they'll never know. I can always take the money and make it look like a business expense. Gasps filled the hall. My mother covered her mouth. Noah turned to me, eyes wide, as if searching for the truth in my face. I felt the world tilt. That's not me. I shouted. That's not, Maya, you know that's not me. But she just looked at me with tearful eyes and whispered, I didn't want to believe it either. Her performance was flawless. People started murmuring, some avoiding my eyes, others shaking their heads in disappointment. The room spun. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Noah pulled his hand away. Lena, tell me this isn't real. I tried. I begged. But in that moment, every lie Maya had ever whispered took shape. My words meant nothing. My father stood up, his voice trembling. You've humiliated this family for the last time. Get out. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. I looked at my mother, her eyes filled with shame, not for Maya, but for me. Mom, I whispered, please, you know me. She looked away. It felt like the world had gone dark. My legs barely carried me as I stumbled out of the hall, hearing whispers trail behind me like shadows. Such a disgrace. Poor Maya. Imagine having a sister like that. Outside, the night was cold. The sound of laughter from inside felt cruel. I could still hear that fake recording echoing in my head. My voice twisted into something unrecognizable, something evil. I sat alone in my car, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My makeup was smudged, my eyes swollen. Everything I had built, my name, my love, my family, gone in a single lie. For days, no one called. Not even Noah. I was erased, like I'd never belonged to them at all. The house I grew up in became theirs alone. Maya moved into my old room, handling the finances I once managed. My father told relatives I was no longer part of the household. I kept quiet. At first because I was broken, and then because I was planning. One night, while replaying everything in my head, I finally opened the voice memo I had found on Maya's phone weeks earlier.
My hands shook as I pressed play.
Her voice came through, calm and deliberate.
She's too perfect. Too loved.
I just need one mistake, one lie big enough to make them doubt her forever.
My breath caught.
The recording continued, fragments of her talking to someone, maybe Aunt Susan.
Once Dad hears this fake clip, he'll never trust her again.
He hates embarrassment more than anything.
That was the proof.
The truth. The weapon she never thought I'd find. At first, tears blurred my vision. Then something inside me shifted, slow, cold, and steady.
My heartbreak hardened into resolve.
All my life, I'd fought for their love. I'd tried to prove myself worthy, patient, understanding. But love built on lies wasn't love at all. It was control.
And she had controlled all of us long enough.
I wiped my tears and whispered to my reflection, "You took everything from me, Maya. But you forgot one thing, I still have the truth." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Not because I'd healed, but because I finally knew what had to be done. That night, the fear inside me died. And in its place, something stronger was born. The quiet promise of justice. For weeks after the betrayal, I lived inside a small, furious silence. I stopped calling, stopped answering the door, stopped pretending to be okay. The world they'd built without me felt unbearably loud, their laughter like a fresh wound. But silence is a strange teacher. In the quiet, anger sharpened into focus.
Grief cooled into a plan. First I grieved properly. I let myself cry until my chest unclenched.
Then I started counting. Every lie, every whisper, every favor I'd given that had been used against me. I wrote names on paper and folded those papers into a small, methodical pile.
Grief became homework.
I needed allies who weren't blinded by the Carter shine. Daniel, my cousin, had always watched things the way a careful man watches a chessboard. When I showed him Maya's voice memo, his face lost color. "This changes everything," he said softly. "We can use this, but we need more than hurt.
We need proof that stands up."
So we set rules, no traps, no illegal recordings, nothing that would make me look as small as they'd made me. We'd use what already existed, messages, receipts, witnesses, and build a case so clear it would pierce their denial.
Mrs. Harlow was the other gift.
The evening I finally told her everything, she folded my hands in hers and whispered, "I'll testify. I heard Maya, I heard the plans."
Her steady voice gave me courage.
A single honest witness was worth more than 1,000 sympathetic strangers.
Practicality became my new love language.
I pulled every bank statement, every transfer, every proof that showed where money had gone. The hospital bills I'd quietly covered, the invoices I'd paid. I printed emails where I'd asked for reimbursement and never received it. I saved screenshots of Maya's staged sadness and of her runs of charm, the ones that happened too soon after an accusation. Daniel taught me how to organize files, label evidence, and keep backups where no one could find them.
But this wasn't only about paper. I rebuilt myself physically too. I stopped wearing the armor of meekness and practiced standing where people could see me.
I rehearsed my voice in the mirror until it didn't wobble when I said the word truth. I let Noah see me once, not begging, not pleading, just steady. He didn't come back that night, but I no longer needed his rescue to be whole. There were moments I doubted. Late at night when the house was a dark stone and my palms were empty. Was I becoming the thing I hated? Would exposing her ruin everything, even the good parts of my family? I asked myself if justice was worth the devastation it might cause. Each time I hesitated, I played Maya's recorded glee in my head and remembered the way she had smiled as my life collapsed.
That memory pushed the doubt away.
We chose a time, a family dinner that felt ordinary, the kind they'd easily fill with friends and relatives.
Daniel would bring the printed evidence. Mrs. Harlow would sit close enough she could stand up and speak.
I would not scream. I would present what was true and let the truth do what it must. The night before, I sat on the edge of my old bed and arranged the files in a neat stack. My hands did not shake anymore. My heart still hammered, but it was steady, not with fear, but with resolve. I remembered a phrase my mother used to say when I was small, "Stand for what you are."
I wasn't the girl who'd bowed under lies anymore.
I slipped the phone with Maya's voice into my pocket, feeling its weight like a small, talismanic stone. I whispered to myself, if they won't see the truth behind her tears, I will make them hear it. At dawn, with the house still sleeping and my plan final, I stood by the mirror one last time. My reflection looked like someone who had been broken and carefully rebuilt. I picked up the files, the phone, Daniel's number saved in my hand.
Tomorrow night would decide everything.
My thumb hovered over the screen, and then I stepped out into the cold, toward the house that had become my arena. The night of the dinner felt ordinary on the surface, but every breath I took carried purpose. The Carter dining room gleamed like a stage, the silverware polished, candles flickering, laughter bouncing against the walls. Everyone was there, Mom, Dad, Aunt Susan, even Noah. And, of course, Maya, sitting across from me in her perfect white dress, glowing like a saint under soft light. I sat quietly, my heart steady, my plan sharper than ever.
No one knew this wasn't a dinner. It was an unveiling. Dad raised his glass.
To family, he said, smiling proudly. I raised mine too. To truth, I whispered.
Maya tilted her head.
Still dramatic, aren't you, sis?
Her tone dripped with mock affection. I smiled back.
Only when I have to be.
A few moments passed before I stood up. My knees didn't shake. My voice didn't tremble.
For the first time in months, I felt like myself. There's something I want to share, I began, calmly. Something all of you deserve to hear.
Mom frowned.
Lena, please, not tonight.
No, Mom.
Tonight's perfect.
I placed my phone on the table and pressed play.
Maya's voice filled the room, smooth, confident, poisonous.
She's too perfect.
Too loved. I just need one mistake, one lie big enough to make them doubt her forever.
The laughter died instantly. The air turned to glass. Aunt Susan's fork clattered to the floor.
Mom went pale, eyes wide in disbelief. Dad's hand froze midair, his knuckles white. Maya's face drained of color. That's not me, she stammered, her voice trembling. I met her eyes coldly. It's your voice, Maya. I found it on your phone. I hit play again, her voice laughing, soft and cruel. Once Dad hears this fake clip, he'll never trust her again. He hates embarrassment more than anything.
Dad's lips parted, but no words came out. Mom's hands shook.
The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Maya, Dad finally said, his voice low and dangerous, tell me this is some kind of joke.
Her eyes darted wildly. It was just a stupid plan.
I didn't mean for it to go this far. Go this far. I repeated, my voice rising, years of pain finally finding their echo. You ruined my engagement, my name, my place in this family. You made everyone believe I was a thief.
Tears streamed down her cheeks as she tried to reach for me.
Lena, please.
I stepped back. Don't. You wanted attention, Maya? You have it now.
The room felt like it was collapsing, memories, loyalties, all shattering at once.
Noah's voice broke the silence next.
Lena,
I'm so sorry.
I didn't know. I looked at him for a long moment, then said softly, you didn't want to know.
Dad stood, his chair screeching against the floor. I can't believe this.
All this time, we doubted the wrong daughter.
Mom was sobbing quietly.
How could you do this, Maya? To your own sister? Maya crumpled to the floor, crying, I just wanted you to love me more than her. You always loved her first. Her words hit the room like thunder. Suddenly, it all made sense. The jealousy, the manipulation, the cruel sweetness. It wasn't just hatred, it was hunger. I watched her, feeling nothing, no pity, no rage.
Just release.
You didn't need to destroy me to be seen, I said quietly.
You only needed to tell the truth. But you chose lies. And now you get to live with them.
Dad turned to me, voice cracking. Lena, can you ever forgive us?
I shook my head.
Forgiveness isn't something you ask for once the damage is done. It's something you earn, slowly. I gathered the papers Daniel had brought, proof of my innocence, receipts, statements, and placed them on the table.
Here's the truth. All of it. I won't defend myself anymore. Believe it or don't.
I'm done fighting for love that should have been mine without proof. Then I looked directly at Maya, still on the floor, tears streaking her perfect face.
You wanted to win, Maya. You did. You have their attention now.
But you'll never have their respect again.
The room was silent.
Only the soft ticking of the wall clock filled the space between us. I turned to leave, my heels echoing against the marble. As I reached the door, I said one last thing, not loud, but clear enough for everyone to hear.
Truth doesn't need applause.
It just needs time to destroy every lie. And when I walked out that door, I knew I wasn't the broken one anymore. I was free, and she was finally exposed. The next morning, the house was quiet, too quiet. No shouting, no laughter, not even the sound of clinking dishes from the kitchen. Just silence. It was strange, almost peaceful, the kind of peace that only comes after a storm destroys everything that needed to fall apart. I stood by the window, watching the sunlight creep slowly across the garden I used to tend as a child. Every flower, every path, every memory felt different now, lighter, freer. For years, I carried the weight of their doubt, their coldness, their silence. But now, the truth had finally spoken for me. Mom came to see me before I left. Her eyes were red, her voice soft. Lena, I don't know how to face you after everything. I failed you. I gave a faint smile. You believed what was easiest to believe, Mom. That's what love sometimes does, blinds us to what's right in front of us. She reached for my hand, trembling. Can you ever forgive me?
I looked at her gently.
Forgiveness isn't a gift I can give overnight.
But I don't hate you.
I just can't stay where I was never truly seen.
Dad didn't speak much.
He just stood at the door, his shoulders heavy with shame. When I passed him, he whispered, "You deserved better, Lena." I paused, turned to him, and said softly, "We all get what we allow, Dad. I allowed your silence for too long." In the living room, Maya sat curled up on the couch, her eyes swollen, her voice faint. "You're leaving?" she asked, almost like a child again. "I am," I replied quietly. "I never meant for it to go this far," she murmured. "I just wanted to be loved the way you were." I looked at her, the girl who once called me her best friend, who turned my kindness into her weapon. "You could have been," I said simply. "Love doesn't shrink when it's shared, Maya. It only dies when it's poisoned by jealousy."
She didn't answer. Maybe she couldn't.
Maybe some truths are too heavy to hold all at once. As I stepped outside, the air felt crisp, clean, like the first breath after long illness. I didn't take anything with me except my peace. No papers, no proofs, no apologies. Just freedom. The taxi waited at the gate. I turned once, seeing the house that had been both my home and my prison. Behind those walls, my name had been ruined and rebuilt. As we drove away, the sky began to change, the first light of dawn breaking through the gray. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt whole. Because sometimes justice isn't about revenge or punishment, it's about being able to walk away with your dignity intact. I learned that truth doesn't shout, it simply waits. And when it finally arrives, it burns quietly, leaving behind only what was real all along. Before the road curved out of sight, I whispered to myself, a line that had become my truth, my peace. Respect isn't something you beg for, it's something you reclaim when the world finally sees your worth. And in that moment, I knew, I had lost a family built on lies, but found something far more powerful. Myself.